Welcome back to the Fantasy Checkdown. Today I will be doing my Week 2 QB rankings for PPR format leagues. To start things off, no surprise, number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes was great against Houston in Week 1, completing 24 for 32 of his passes, throwing for 3 touchdowns, and limiting his turnovers. I think this week he's going to expose the Chargers defense. Even though they're a good defense, I think he's going to play really well. And I think the Chiefs are going to score a lot of points, and I think Patrick Mahomes is going to have himself a great day. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson also threw for 3 touchdowns in Week 1 against the Browns. I think this week, playing the Texans, it's definitely going to be a closer game, but I think the Ravens are actually going to score more points this week. I think Lamar can do a lot more on the ground this week than he did last week. He didn't have a rushing touchdown, but I could see him getting in the end zone for a rushing touchdown this week. I also see him targeting Mark Andrews a lot, and I think Hollywood Brown has a big day. I think Lamar Jackson could have easily 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown against a pretty poor Houston defense. Coming in number 3, Josh Allen. Josh Allen was amazing for fantasy last week against the Jets, and now he faces arguably the second worst team in the NFL in the Miami Dolphins. I don't see him throwing the ball 43 times again, but he might make more of his effort putting into the end zone, as he kind of missed a couple throws for touchdowns in Week 1. But I still could see him having 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns. This Miami Dolphins defense just gave up 75 rushing yards to Cam Newton and 2 rushing touchdowns, and I don't see why Josh Allen can't do the same. Number 4, Dak Prescott. An underwhelming Week 1 performance against the Rams. Dak and the Dallas offense looked pretty poor and inconsistent, just like they did last year. However, this week, I think Dak's going to get more time to throw the ball. I don't think, even though the Falcons' front 7 isn't terrible, I don't think their pass rush is as good as Aaron Donald and the Rams. So I see Dak Prescott having more time in the pocket, which only means more time to throw to his trio of receivers. Also, the Falcons don't have Jalen Ramsey. Their secondary is very weak. That's the weak point of their defense. So I think Dak Prescott has a field day against this team. Number 5, Russell Wilson. Coming off one of the best performances of his career against the Falcons in Week 1. Russ faces off against a very good New England defense. I still think he gets it done. Russ is so good. I think he could win MVP this year. He had it last year until about Week 12 when he fell off and Lamar just stayed consistent. But I think this game could turn into a shootout type game, because I think Russ can exploit that defense like no other quarterback probably could. And I think that DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and even Greg Olsen provide some challenges for the New England defense. So I think Russ has a really good week. Number 6, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray coming off a pretty great week against the San Francisco 49ers defense. San Francisco 49ers, while their secondary isn't great, they do have a good defense. Their front 7 is very good, but Kyler Murray made the most out of it with his mobility. He faced off this week against the Washington football team pass rush, which had 8 sacks last week against Carson Wentz. While the Cardinals' O-line isn't good, and it's probably worse than the Eagles, Kyler Murray is much more mobile and versatile than Carson Wentz, and I think Kyler Murray can make the most out of his opportunities. And he also is a pure number 1 in DeAndre Hopkins, unlike Wentz. So I think Kyler Murray can have a really good day against a poor secondary, and he can use his legs to get some rushing yards like he did last week. I see him having a really good week. Number 7, Matt Ryan. The Dallas defense isn't anything special. Matt Ryan threw for 53 times in Week 1. Falcons have plenty of weapons. They're going to throw the ball. Matt Ryan always has high passing yards, high passing touchdowns. I can't see there any reason Matt Ryan doesn't have another really solid week, because they'll probably be down in this game. They're probably going to have to throw the ball. And I think Matt Ryan can connect with his... He also has a trio of receivers. Russell Gage, not so much, but had 100 receiving yards last week, and I think Matt Ryan can exploit this weak Dallas defense and might be the reason Dallas gets Earl Thomas. Number 8, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers coming off a amazing week 1. I think he was the player of the week. 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. Really took advantage of a poor Viking secondary. This week he plays another poor secondary in the Lions. Jeff Okudah, the Lions rookie cornerback, is hurt. I'm not sure if he's going to be out, but even if he's not, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to throw the ball on the seam a lot. I think that Detroit is not going to be able to keep up with Rodgers, and the throws he was making last week is just showing that he still has some juice left in him, and I think he could have another 3 touchdown day, and we always know with Aaron Rodgers, he limits the turnovers, so I think he's going to have a really good week with high upside. Number 9, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was pretty poor until the end of the game against the Chiefs. He had a pick. He almost had a fumble, but he still made up for it on the ground. He had a rushing touchdown. He had a passing touchdown. He had a solid fantasy day, and I expect the Texans to be down a lot in this game. I think he's gonna have to throw the ball and try to get them back in it. So I think Watson at 9 is pretty respectable. I don't think he's gonna be much better this week, especially since the Ravens defense is very good. I think it's a lot better than Chiefs defense, and he's going to be running wild because that pass rush is going to get to him. So he's going to have to try to limit the turnovers and make plays happen, and I think he'll have a decent week. Number 10, Cam Newton. Cam Newton looked really, really good against the Dolphins. Granted, it was against the Dolphins, but he looked good against the team in his first game back. Could be a comeback player of the year. We will see. Against the Seattle defense, which isn't too great. It's not bad. I think Jamal Adams is going to change that defense, kind of like a Cam Chancellor or Earl Thomas player did. But I think Cam Newton can have a good week. I think, as I said earlier with Russ, it's going to be a shootout. So Cam's going to have to throw the ball, which could only uptake his value this week. And I still think he has a rushing attempts and rushing yards there. So I think Cam Newton's in store for a big week. Number 11, Tom Brady. Brady looked pretty old in week 1. He had 2 turnovers, 2 poor picks, but he made up for it with 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. He might be without Chris Godwin this game, which could hurt him a lot because Mike Evans is already banged up. So his value might drop a little bit. They might rely on the run. But the Carolina defense is very bad. I could see Tom Brady being able to exploit them for easy touchdowns and a high upside. Number 12, Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger on Monday night started off a little shaky, but he came back well, and he ended up with 3 touchdowns, no turnovers against the Giants defense. This week against Denver, Denver's definitely a better defense, but A.J. Bouye is most likely going to be placed on the IR, which only opens more things up for this offense. He will most likely be without James Conner, but Benny Snell looked a lot better than Conner anyway on Monday night. I think Ben Roethlisberger is going to have a really good week as he only gets more and more comfortable and gets more in a rhythm after being injured last year. And I think the Steelers' offense has a big day ahead of them. Number 13, Drew Brees. Drew Brees, along with Brady, also looked really bad on Sunday in their matchup. He looked old. Couldn't really get anything going. He only had 180 passing yards. And this week he's going to be without his go-to guy, Michael Thomas. So he's going to have to rely on Emmanuel Sanders and Traquan Smith to step up heavily. Also, I think that they're going to rely on the run a lot with Latavius Murray and Kamara. So Breeze, while I think he should have a good day passing against Vegas, he might actually be worse as they might rely on the run. Number 14, Matthew Stafford. Stafford actually had a pretty solid day until Matt Patricia came in and tried to be cute and conservative, and they lost the game. I think this week he's going to have to throw the ball a lot. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense looked amazing last week. I think the Detroit Lions are going to be down. Their defense is really bad. I think Stafford's going to have to throw them back into the game. So I could see Matthew Stafford having one of those 3 touchdowns, 1 interception weeks, 400 yards, one of his classic weeks he used to have last year and prior to his career, I think Matthew Stafford has a very high upside this week. Number 15, Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz looked really great in the first couple drives the Eagles had, going up 17-0. After that, the pass rush just got to him. He committed 3 turnovers, 2 picks, and 1 fumble. He couldn't get anything going. He didn't have enough time. He didn't connect with his receivers, whether that was his fault or theirs. And this week they play against Aaron Donald and another high volume pass rush. So I think Wentz, he'll have Miles Sanders and Lane Johnson back this week, so he'll probably be able to have a little bit more time with Lane Johnson back, and he'll have more upside with Miles Sanders catching screens. But the offensive line for the Eagles needs to step it up so Wentz can have enough time to throw the ball. And it all depends on the offensive line whether or not I think Wentz can have a really good week. Number 16, Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo looked alright against the Cardinals. I didn't think he looked anything special. I don't really think Jimmy Garoppolo is the 49ers quarterback of the future. But anyway, I think that against the Jets, who Josh Allen exploited and had one of his best career games against, I think Jimmy Garoppolo can make the most of it. Although he might not have George Kittle, and the offense is already banged up. But I think a lot of dump offs to Jerick McKinnon and Raheem Mostert can help his fantasy output. I don't really think the Jets defense should cause any havoc to Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he should be able to have time in the pocket to make the right throws. There's no more Jamal Adams, so I don't think that the Jets secondary has any chance against the 49ers. Number 17, Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill, just like Josh Allen, he threw the ball for over 40 times in week 1. I don't see him throwing the ball that many times, and he had a good fantasy day last week, but it wasn't anything special, throwing the ball 43 times. But he's also playing a lot worse defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. I expect the Titans to feed Derrick Henry a lot, which is only going to open up more things in the passing game for Ryan Tannehill. So Ryan Tannehill doesn't really make any mistakes. He really limits his turnovers and makes the smart throw majority of the time. And I think with a possible reemergence of Corey Davis, him, A.J. Brown, and Johnny Smith can help Ryan Tannehill have a solid fantasy year this year and a good week 2. Number 18, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow against arguably, in my opinion, top 5 defense in the league. In his NFL debut with no preseason, I think he played pretty well. The stats might not show it. He didn't really have many passing yards. He did have a pick, but I still think he had a good week. He put the Bengals in position to tie the game when it mattered. And this Browns defense is banged up, especially the secondary. I think Joe Burrow is actually going to have a better week. Even though I see the Bengals losing, I think Burrow has high upside this week against a Browns defense that is very banged up on a short week and Thursday night. Number 19, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins against the Packers, he actually didn't even play that bad. They didn't really throw the ball much until the end of the game, and when they did, he connected for 2 touchdowns with Adam Thielen, and he had pretty good completion percentage. And I think this week against the Colts, who let Gardner Minshew throw 3 touchdowns on him, Kirk Cousins should have a field day. I also think this game has a chance to be kind of a back-and-forth matchup, as both defenses looked very underwhelming, and both really need a win this week in order to bounce back. So I think Kirk Cousins, if you have him, if you don't have a better option, he's not a bad start, but I don't think I would start him. Number 20, Jared Goff. Jared Goff in week 1, he didn't have a good fantasy week. He didn't have any touchdowns. He had a pick. He only had about 275 yards, but the Rams really didn't need him to do anything because they were running the ball down Dallas' throat, and that really controlled the momentum of the game. However, this week I think Jared Goff is going to have to throw the ball because the Eagles' D-line is very good, very formidable, and I don't think Malcolm Brown is going to be able to exploit it that well. So I could see Jared Goff having to rely on Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, maybe even some screens. But I think Goff is going to have to throw the ball this week, which should only put his fantasy upside a lot higher. I'd actually maybe switch him with Kirk Cousins this week, but Jared Goff, he's too inconsistent to trust for me. Number 21, Gardner Minshew. Coming off a 3 touchdown performance, Gardner Minshew looked really, really good, and he's looking like he could catch get a couple wins for the Jags, which might hurt their chances as Trevor Lawrence, but in the end, that might result in them believing in Gardner Minshew a lot more. Minshew looked really good. Only one incompletion, 19 for 20, 3 touchdowns. But this week, he's playing a lot better defense of the Titans. I think the Titans secondary was pretty good against the Broncos. They limited that offense to only 13 points. I think Minshew is going to struggle a bit. He doesn't have his weapons around him as Drew Lock did. He doesn't really have a run game. But I think he's going to throw a lot because I think the Titans are going to be up a lot. So Gardner Minshew could be a QB2 this week in a 2-quarterback league. 22. Mitchell Trubisky. Until the fourth quarter, Trubisky looked god-awful. He looked like himself. He was inaccurate. He couldn't make the throws. And he almost had a couple turnovers. However, the fourth quarter came around, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, almost perfect. Led the Bears back to win. Had an amazing pass to Anthony Miller for the go-ahead touchdown. This week against the Giants defense, it's not good. Neither was Detroit, but the Giants defense not good at all. I think the Bears might try to rely a little bit more on David Montgomery this week, as Benny Schnell had a field day against the Giants. But I think Trubisky could have a little bit of upside. Allen Robinson has a contract dispute. He's still going to play. So I think the Bears, I don't think they're going to score a lot of points, but I think Trubisky could be started if you're really desperate. 23. Daniel Jones, player playing against him. Daniel Jones last week didn't really have a bad day against a really good defense. I thought he threw the ball pretty well. He did make a couple turnovers, really stupid interception on one drive. But other than that, he threw the ball pretty well. However, I think Saquon Barkley is going to be heavily involved in this game. After having 15 rushes for 6 yards in week 1, I think Saquon's only going to be better this week. And I think Saquon in the run game is going to control the tempo, but that might open up more things for Daniel Jones in the field. Number 24, Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers looked like Phillip Rivers in week 1. Throwing the ball downfield, turning the ball over, having a lot of passing yards, a lot of passing attempts. This week against the Vikings, he might have a better day. I don't know. The Jags defense is not good. Phillip Rivers just is not that good anymore. I don't think he should be a fantasy starter. I think they're going to rely on Jonathan Taylor a lot more this game. Maybe some dump-offs to Nyheim Hines, and Jonathan Taylor can break free for a touchdown and boost Phillip Rivers' value. But other than that, I would not start him this week. And finally, 25, Derek Carr. Against a really good Saints defense, I don't see Derek Carr having as good he didn't really have a good day against a pretty poor Carolina defense. That was mainly Josh Jacobs. However, I think Josh Jacobs is going to be limited more this game. So I think Derek Carr could have a better day. But overall, I don't see Derek Carr doing much. I see him making mistakes. Lattimore's probably going to be on Ruggs, I would think. And then Malcolm Jenkins, safety, is only going to make more problems. I don't think the Vegas offense is going to get much going in this game. And I think Derek Carr is going to have a pretty bad day. Well, thank you for watching. These are my top 25 quarterbacks of week 2. Stay tuned for my running back rankings, and thanks for watching.